can be an acharya, you can pass exams, you can recite, you can quote chapter and verse, all the Tripitakas. But that's not what the Buddha wanted. And he in fact said, the one who practices the Dhamma honors me most. The one who is able to practice the Dhamma sees me, who is closest to me. And so on. In many, many occasions he emphasized, he says, no point knowing the Dhamma if you're not practicing it. Just like the spoon with the spoonful of honey. The spoon is not able to know the taste, the wonderful taste of the honey. And you would also not know until you put it into your mouth. So we need now to look at, the holistic approach in terms of understanding, in terms of teaching, in terms of propagating Buddhism. Unfortunately, we have not looked at that. The Buddha himself had done it, but over the years we have lost this emphasis. And that's why I came out with the need to try and promote the practice and practical application of Buddhism. Now, you will find that unique in Buddhism, very unique in Buddhism, is the concept of the mind, based on a very clear understanding of the human being. Because Buddhism is based on reality. The Dhamma is based on reality, as I mentioned at the outset. And it is the understanding of this reality and of nature that the Buddha was able to focus on the human being and the nature and condition of the human being. So we have to start, first of all, in understanding what the human being is. This is what we are looking at. We are not looking at the Dhamma or something else. We have to understand what is a human being. And he pointed out very clearly, the human being comprises of Nama and Rupa, mind and corporality, or mind and body. Very simply, mind and body is something which is universal, irrespective of whether you are a Buddhist or a non-Buddhist, whether you are from Sri Lanka, you're from Malaysia, or from England, or from Africa. All of us, all human beings have a mind and body. And this mind and body have to live together. There is no way, it is intertwined, it's interlinked. And you have to have a symbiotic relationship between this mind and body. There is this situation where people tend to think that, if they take care of the body, and therefore everything is okay. But not so. They are interdependent. Also in terms of success, in terms of development, in terms of good health, in terms of happiness, the mind and body correlationship has to be taken into account. Now we tend to look at the physical side. We dress up well, we bathe ourselves, we put up makeup, we spend a lot of energy, time and money in the physical side, whereas we don't spend that amount of time or hardly any time on the mind. If we are able to understand our own ignorance, our own neglect of the development of the mind, then I think that is a good starting point. And we need to do that. I will be discussing with you on another topic. We need to do that even before the child is born. So this concept of mind as being the forerunner of all our thoughts, speech and actions, and therefore the cultivation of a positive mental culture should form the primary focus of much of our activities, much of our teaching, much of our practice has to be now taken up, and this has to be done even before the child is born, as I said, because the mind is awake, is alive, is functioning as the child is being formed in the mother's womb. We tend to look at the mind only when somebody has done wrong. When a child has done a mistake, when somebody has taken ganja or some drugs or done a murder, then we say this person has done something wrong. But this error, this delinquent behavior, this unethical behavior or immoral behavior the beginning, the root, is not when the person is an adult, but from the time the child, the unborn baby, is being formed in the mother's womb, all the influences are programmed, are cultivated in the mind. And when the child is born, the mind is programmed, mind is cultivated either in a wholesome way or an unwholesome way. It is our duty, parents of course first, to see that this mind is cultured in a wholesome way and not in an unwholesome way. So that is the challenge that we have, and unless we look at it from that beginning point, we might be losing out in terms of realizing the practice and practical application of Buddhism.
Well, thank you very much, sir, on that very inspiring explanation indeed. Sir, now there's a main accusation against Buddhism, most probably from the non-Buddhists. I'm not going to say that it's all of them, but some of them, and also some Buddhists as well. That some people tend to say that Buddhism practices pessimism by mentioning about the dukkha or the suffering, or by bringing out the negative aspects of life. How would you see this matter, sir?
Well, largely this is unfounded. I must say it's unfounded, and also it takes place because of a lack of understanding of what Buddhism is. They tend to, take it out of context. Now, when you are not well, and you're having a temperature or some ailment, whatever it is, what do? You go and see a doctor, right? And if the doctor says, you have to take this bitter medicine, do you say, no, it's bitter, I don't want to take it? You don't do it. And the doctor, if he's honest, he will tell you what is wrong with you. And the Buddha was referred to as, Bisako. He's the unsurpassed psychiatrist, unsurpassed doctor, unsurpassed psychologist. And he understood. I just talked to you about the mind and body. And there are many ailments, because I want to get back to the mind again. There are many ailments which are psychosomatic. They're born out of the fact that, your mind is not in a good state. Insomnia, for example, high blood pressure, so many other ailments, even heart problems, The origin is because your mind is not in a calm, relaxed state. And there are many ways in which we can develop this calmness. That's on the health side. In terms of happiness, again, if your mind is not happy, you're not going to be happy. You can have all the luxuries in the world, but if your mind is not happy, you're not happy. So that's on happiness. You talked about pessimism. You referred to, people referring to Buddhism as being pessimistic and very depressing. I did mention about sukha. Actually, the Buddha saw dukkha, the reality of dukkha, and the flip side, the opposite side of dukkha is sukha. The minute you are able to overcome dukkha, which is what his objective was, he was able to enjoy and realize and achieve blissfulness. And whatever happiness that the Western world or the modern world or all those people who quantify happiness in terms of material, measurements, in terms of sensual pleasures, in terms of, enjoying life. Therefore, in fact, there is a school of thought that says, even from long, long ago, even before the Buddha, enjoy life. Life is not certain. Therefore, enjoy life and you can attain moksha by just simply indulging sensually and also materially. He was against that completely. He knew that it's insatiable to start with. You can never find anybody in this whole wide world who is satisfied with whatever millions he has. He wants more. And then there is also the fact that it is not permanent. It cannot be permanent. Whereas the concepts and the teachings and the practices that the Buddha had pronounced and propagated and taught us is able to address all of these lackings in the so-called optimistic kind of picture that they present to be the better than Buddhism situation. They fail to understand Buddhism presents the most optimistic, because you have understood what the problem is and you have gone to the root of the problem, and you're not dealing with only phenomena or the symptoms of problems. You are going to the root of the problem and you're able to address the problem. Equally important, you are not going to depend on somebody else to solve this problem. This is something that is doubly important in Buddhism. Not only it is very optimistic, very promising, very realistic, very down to earth, no airy-fairy things, but you are in the driver's seat. It is in your hands to be able to achieve all of this. You don't have to depend on somebody else. You are encouraged, it is being insisted that you have to be self-reliant, that you are capable of achieving. And if you want to talk in terms of, progress, success, achievement, Buddhism is a complete program, a complete training program. Not only just a program, a complete training program for success, for happiness and well-being. It's a complete training program. If you follow the Buddhist practices and the Buddha's teaching, you will be able to face any challenges, any difficulties in life. And if you're a student, you'll be able to do well. You would be able to excel, because Buddhism enables you to reach the excellence. He recognized that each one of us has got talents, has got skills, has got innate abilities, and it is up to us to develop these things. And the third point, I think, which is a lack of understanding, is that the Western world and various other people who have lack of understanding of Buddhism or a warped understanding of Buddhism tend to look at the Buddha as though he only talked about renunciation and sacrifices, whereas some of the most profound suttas are about lay life. The Sigalova Sutta, and what have I been talking about and what I've been dealing about in my books and in my lectures and in my publications is the lay life, how to live a happy lay life. And he spoke to kings, queens, murderers, fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, the whole strata of society. He didn't just talk about becoming a monk or joining the monastic life. He said, by all means, live a lay life, and this is how to live a happy family life. This is how to live a life of a student. This is how to live a life of a parent. So I think it's terribly, terribly unfounded, and it's very sad, but I think there is some light coming out in many parts of the world where, because we are able now to produce books and spread the word of the Dhamma to the Western world and other parts of the world, more and more people have been able to see the light in Buddhism, and they're changing. In fact, a lot more people are taking on to Buddhism because of all the things that I've talked to you about, the realism, the practicality, the positive aspects. And if Buddhism was pessimistic, or depressing, you won't find people coming. The West is taking on a great interest in Buddhism.
Yeah, you won't find people coming, and for so many years, more than 2000. Well, yes, sir. Now you just happened to mention what the Buddha has preached about lay life, and you mentioned the Sigalovada Sutra. Well, in Buddhism, there is a practice called the worship of the 6 directions, or the Sadisa Namaskara.
Yeah.
Well, in our society, some people tend to say, well, I don't have time to do all this. What can you say, sir? How can you practically apply this Sadisa Namaskara in your life?
Well, that particular sutta, he just symbolically demonstrated all the 6 directions.